Imagine being denied service just because of who your family is. That's exactly what happened to Barron Trump at a small-town diner, but instead of calling his father or storming out, Barron did something that left everyone speechless. His unexpected response didn't just change the waiter's mind, it sparked a transformation in the entire restaurant. This video isn't about politics or taking sides, it's about the moment when kindness triumphs over prejudice, and how one person's actions can inspire change in the most unlikely places. Before we jump into the story, don't forget to hit the like button, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and stay tuned to see how this story unfolds. The sun-drenched streets of a small town buzzed with afternoon activity as Barron Trump and his friends approached the local diner. Its faded blue awning and cheerful neon sign promised a slice of Americana and a hearty meal. Barron, dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt, blended in with the other patrons as he pushed open the glass door, the bell above tinkling softly. Inside, the aroma of fresh coffee and sizzling burgers filled the air. Barron and his friends slid into a red vinyl booth, their laughter mingling with the clinking of cutlery and the low hum of conversation. For a moment, it seemed like any other day in any other diner across America. The waiter, a man in his mid-30s with a well-worn apron and a pencil tucked behind his ear, approached their table with a stack of menus. His easy smile faltered as his eyes fell on Barron. Recognition dawned, and the waiter's demeanor shifted abruptly. His shoulders stiffened and his lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm sorry," the waiter said, his voice tight, "but I can't serve you." The words hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. Barron's friends exchanged confused glances, their earlier laughter dying away. Around them, the diner grew quiet as other patrons turned to watch the scene unfold. Barron looked up at the waiter, his expression a mix of surprise and concern. "Is there a problem?" he asked softly. The waiter's jaw clenched. "I think you know what the problem is. Your last name is Trump. We don't serve your kind here." A ripple of whispers spread through the diner. Some patrons shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others leaned forward, curiosity etched on their faces. The tension in the air was palpable, like a rubber band stretched to its limit. Barron's friends looked to him, their eyes wide with uncertainty. One started to stand, ready to leave, but Barron gently shook his head. He took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving the waiter's face. The atmosphere in the diner grew thick with anticipation. Other staff members hovered nearby, unsure whether to intervene. An elderly couple at the next table exchanged worried glances, while a group of teenagers by the window pulled out their phones, ready to capture whatever might happen next. Barron's mind raced. He could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on him, waiting to see how the son of a controversial figure would react. Would he storm out in anger? Call his father? Demand to speak to the manager? Instead, Barron did something that no one in the diner expected. He stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and calm. The waiter took a step back, tension visible in every line of his body. But Barron's face showed no anger, no indignation. Instead, there was a quiet determination in his eyes, a resolve that seemed beyond his years. As Barron prepared to address the situation, the entire diner held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next in this unexpected confrontation. The diner fell silent, all eyes fixed on Barron Trump. But rather than react with anger or entitlement, he chose a path so unconventional it would challenge everything the waiter thought he knew about the Trump family. What happened next would ripple through the restaurant and beyond. Barron took a deep breath and stepped towards the waiter, his hands open at his sides in a gesture of peace. The waiter's eyes widened, his body tensing as if preparing for confrontation. But Barron's voice, when he spoke, was soft and measured. "I understand you don't want to serve me," Barron said, meeting the waiter's gaze. "But would you be willing to talk with me for a few minutes?" The waiter blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected request. He glanced around the diner, where every patron sat frozen, waiting to see what would unfold. After a moment's hesitation, he gave a curt nod. Barron pulled up a nearby chair and sat down, gesturing for the waiter to join him. Reluctantly, the man lowered himself onto the edge of a seat, his posture rigid with distrust. "I'm Barron," he began, "and I know my last name comes with a lot of assumptions. but I'd like to tell you about the time I volunteered at a homeless shelter in D.C. As Barron spoke, his voice carried through the hushed diner. He described serving meals alongside people from all walks of life, learning their stories, and realizing how circumstances beyond control could change anyone's path. The waiter's frown deepened, then slowly began to soften. Other staff members edged closer, abandoning pretense of work to listen. A cook peered out from the kitchen, spatula in hand. Even the clink of cutlery fell away as diners leaned in, captivated by the unlikely conversation unfolding before them. Barron shared more personal stories: struggles with bullying at school, the weight of constant public scrutiny, and his efforts to forge his own identity. With each anecdote, the tension in the waiter's shoulders eased slightly. "I guess I never thought about it that way," the waiter admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Barron nodded, encouraging him to continue. "What about you?" he asked. "What made you decide to become a waiter?" Hesitantly at first, then with growing animation, the waiter began to talk. He spoke of dreams deferred, of family obligations, and of finding unexpected joy in connecting with customers. As he spoke, Barron listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that revealed a genuine interest in the man's experiences. Gradually, the hostility melted from the waiter's face, replaced by a look of cautious curiosity. The two found common ground in their love of baseball and their shared experience of feeling misunderstood by others. As their conversation drew to a close, a small smile tugged at the corners of the waiter's mouth. He looked at Barron with new eyes, seeing not just a name but a person, complex, flawed, and fundamentally human, just like himself. The transformation was subtle but undeniable. The first seeds of understanding had been planted, and the atmosphere in the diner shifted from tense anticipation to something approaching wonder. Just when it seemed the ice had begun to thaw, Barron posed a question that caught everyone off guard. "If you could switch places with me for a day, would you?" The waiter's answer, and what followed, would transform not just their interaction, but the entire atmosphere of the diner. The waiter hesitated, his brow furrowing as he considered the unexpected question. The diner held its collective breath, waiting for his response. Finally, he shook his head. "No, I don't think I would," he admitted quietly. "The pressure, the constant scrutiny, I can't imagine living like that." Barron nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "It's not easy," he agreed, "but it's taught me a lot about empathy and understanding different perspectives." "What about you? What's shaped your worldview?" The waiter glanced around, suddenly aware of the attentive audience. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice growing stronger with each word. He shared stories of growing up in a struggling small town, of dreams deferred and the daily challenges of making ends meet. As he spoke, Barron listened intently, his eyes never leaving the waiter's face. Other diners leaned in, captivated by the unlikely dialogue unfolding before them. A couple at a nearby booth exchanged surprised glances, while an elderly man at the counter nodded along, recognition flashing in his eyes. The waiter's words painted a vivid picture of a life far removed from the glitz and glamour often associated with the Trump name. He spoke of community struggles, of friends lost to addiction, and of the fear that gripped many when faced with an uncertain future. As the waiter's story unfolded, something remarkable happened. The hard lines of judgment on his face began to soften. His gestures became more animated, his voice more passionate. It was as if, in sharing his truth, he was rediscovering parts of himself long buried beneath layers of preconception and bias. Barron, for his part, asked thoughtful questions that revealed a depth of understanding beyond his years. He shared his own experiences of feeling isolated and misunderstood, drawing surprising parallels between their seemingly disparate lives. The atmosphere in the diner shifted palpably. The earlier hostility dissolved, replaced by a sense of shared humanity. Even those who had initially glared at Barron now watched the exchange with a mix of curiosity and dawning respect. As their conversation reached a natural lull, the waiter chuckled softly. "You know," he said, shaking his head in wonder, "I never thought I'd say this, but you're nothing like I expected." Barron grinned, a mischievous glint in his eye. Well, I never thought I'd be sitting here swapping stories with the guy who refused to serve me lunch. Life's full of surprises, isn't it? The waiter threw his head back and laughed, a genuine, full-bodied sound that seemed to break the last of the tension. Soon, Barron joined in, and their shared laughter rippled through the diner, inviting smiles and chuckles from those around them. In that moment, the labels and preconceptions that had divided them fell away. They were no longer the son of a controversial president and a wary waiter, but simply two people finding unexpected common ground. As the laughter faded, a profound shift rippled through the diner. The waiter's face, once etched with hostility, now softened with a mix of regret and newfound respect. He cleared his throat, his voice carrying a sincerity that caught everyone off guard. "Barron, I owe you an apology," he said, meeting the young man's gaze. "I judged you without knowing you, and that wasn't fair. I'd be honored to serve you and your friends lunch." The words hung in the air for a moment before a quiet murmur of approval spread through the diner. Barron smiled warmly, accepting the apology with a grace that belied his years. As if drawn by an invisible force, other staff members began to approach. A young waitress with fiery red hair stepped forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. "That was incredible," she said. "I've never seen anyone handle a situation like that before." The cook, a burly man with kind eyes, nodded in agreement. "You've got me thinking about how I look at people," he admitted. "Maybe we all need to take a step back sometimes." From the back of the diner emerged a woman in her 60s, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. The owner's apron around her waist identified her as more than just another patron. She surveyed the scene before her, a mix of wonder and determination on her face. "I've owned this place for 30 years, she began, her voice carrying easily across the room, "and I've never seen anything quite like this. Barron, your kindness and willingness to reach out. Well, it's got me thinking." The owner turned to address the entire diner. "From this day forward, we're implementing a new policy. This diner will be a place of open dialogue. No matter who you are or where you come from, you'll find a listening ear here." A ripple of excitement passed through the crowd. The tension that had gripped the diner earlier had transformed into something electric, full of possibility. Barron and the waiter, caught up in the moment, began to brainstorm ideas. They talked about community forums, meet and greet events where people from different walks of life could connect over a shared meal. "We could start small," Barron suggested. "Maybe a weekly discussion group?" The waiter nodded enthusiastically. "And we could invite local leaders, people with different perspectives, give everyone a chance to be heard." As word spread, the diner began to take on a new significance in the town. It was no longer just a place for burgers and fries, but a symbol of what could happen when people opened their hearts and minds. Barron's simple act of kindness had sparked something larger. Conversations about prejudice and understanding that had long been avoided now found a home within these walls. The diner became a testament to the power of compassion, a reminder that change often begins with a single, unexpected moment of connection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the diner's windows, the transformation was complete. What began as a tense standoff had blossomed into a moment of genuine connection. Barron Trump and the once hostile waiter now stood side by side, united in their desire to foster understanding. The power of compassion and open communication had bridged a divide that seemed insurmountable. It wasn't just about changing one person's mind, it was about sparking a ripple effect that touched everyone in that small-town diner. This unexpected encounter serves as a powerful reminder. In a world often divided by labels and assumptions, the simplest acts of kindness can break down the tallest barriers. It challenges us all to look beyond our preconceptions and find the humanity in those we might consider different from ourselves. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.